A man had 4 sons. He decided to teach them an important lesson, so he sent each of them to visit a pear tree growing in a faraway land. Each son went in a different season. The first son went in winter, the second went in spring, the third went in summer, and the youngest went in autumn. When all of them returned, the father called his sons and asked them what they had seen. The first son, who had gone in winter, said, "The tree was ugly, twisted, and bent. It looked weak and lifeless." The second son immediately disagreed and said, "No, it was green, fresh, and full of beautiful leaves." The third son said, "I do not agree with either of you. The tree was covered with flowers, and its fragrance filled the air. It was a truly beautiful sight." Then the youngest son shared his view. The tree was heavy with fruit, bending toward the ground. It looked rich and wonderful. The father smiled and said, "None of you is wrong. Every one of you is right." Then he gently explained, "You cannot judge a tree by seeing it in only one season. In the same way, you cannot judge a person by seeing only one moment of their life. Just as a tree sometimes looks bare, sometimes blooms with flowers, and sometimes carries sweet fruit, a person also passes through different phases and struggles. If you see someone only in anger, pain, or difficulty, it does not mean that they are a bad person. Never rush to judge. Learn to understand the season someone is living in before you decide who they truly are. Every life has seasons, and every season has a purpose." A young man walked through the city every morning with heavy eyes and an even heavier heart. He had talent, he had dreams, but he also had one invisible wall around him, his ego. Whenever someone offered guidance, he smiled politely and said, "I already know." When a small job appeared, he rejected it. "It's below my level." When a kind old shopkeeper tried to teach him a simple skill, he turned away. "I was made for bigger things." Days passed. Opportunities passed faster. One evening, tired and broken, he sat alone on a quiet street and whispered, "God, why is my life not changing?" A soft answer rose inside his heart, "Because you are holding your pride tighter than your future." That night he made a small but brave decision. The next morning he returned to the same shopkeeper and said gently, "Please teach me." He listened. He worked. He learned. Slowly doors began to open, not because he became greater, but because he became humble, and he finally understood. Ego protects your image, but humility protects your destiny. Moral, your ego keeps you poor. Your humility invites growth, blessings, and unseen help from God. A ship's engine suddenly stopped working in the middle of operations. The owner hired one expert after another, but no one could find the real fault or fix the problem. Finally, he was told about an old man who had been repairing ships since his youth. When the old man arrived, he carried a large tool bag on his shoulder. Without wasting a single moment, he carefully inspected the engine from top to bottom. The ship owners stood nearby, watching him with great hope. After a long and careful examination, the old man took out a small hammer from his bag and gently tapped one specific spot on the engine. Within seconds, the engine roared back to life. The old man placed the hammer back in his bag. The engine was perfectly repaired. 1 week later, the ship owners received a bill for $10,000. They were shocked. He barely did anything. How can the bill be so high? They sent him a message asking for a detailed breakdown of the charges. The old man replied, "Hammer tap, 2, knowing exactly where to tap. 9 pounds, 998, moral, hard work is important, but real value comes from knowing where and how to apply it." Experience turns effort into results. Challenges build mastery and time shape skill. Consistency and patience create experts, not shortcuts. Every morning Sarah woke up with the same heavy feeling in her heart. Life felt unfair, slow, and unkind. She believed the world had already decided her fate. One quiet evening she sat alone in a small park, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. An old woman passed by and gently said, "You look tired, not from work, but from your thoughts." Sarah whispered, "Nothing ever goes right for me." The woman smiled softly. "Nothing changes until the story inside you changes." That night, Sarah tried something small. Instead of blaming the day, she thanked God for one simple gift, her breath. The next day, she spoke kindly to a stranger. She forgave an old hurt she had been carrying for years. She smiled even when her heart still felt weak. Slowly, her world did not change as she did. And because her thoughts became lighter, her words became gentler, her actions became braver, and her life became brighter. She finally understood. Your energy is not just how you feel. It is how you create your future. Moral. When you choose positive energy, you choose a better story for your life. And God opens doors that fear can never unlock. Once upon a time, 2 cats found a loaf of bread somewhere. Both of them were very hungry, and each wanted the bigger share of the bread. Soon they started fighting and growling at each other. While they were standing around the bread and arguing, a monkey sitting on a nearby tree noticed them. He was very clever and thought to himself that this was a good chance to take advantage of their fight and eat the bread himself. He climbed down from the tree and said in a very kind and sympathetic voice, "Why are you both fighting? Give the bread to me. I will settle your problem and divide it equally." The cats believed him and handed the bread over to the monkey. The monkey brought a weighing scale. He cut the bread into 2 pieces and placed them on the 2 sides of the scale. On purpose, he made one piece a little bigger so that one side became heavier. The monkey said, "Oh, this side is heavier. I will eat a little from this piece to make both sides equal." Saying this, he took a bite from the bigger piece. Now the other side became heavy. He again said the same thing and took a small bite from the other piece. In this way, he kept eating alternately from one side and then the other until only a very small piece of bread was left on the scale. By now, the cats understood the monkey's trick. In panic, they said, "Brother Monkey, please give us what is left. We will divide it ourselves." But the monkey laughed and said, "This little piece is my reward for the hard work I did to settle your dispute." He ate the last bite, quickly climbed back up the tree, and disappeared. 4 passengers were traveling in a private airplane: a doctor, a lawyer, an elderly religious scholar, and a school student. Suddenly, the plane's engine failed. The pilot came out of the cockpit and announced, "I have tried my best, but now it is impossible to save the plane. It can crash at any moment. If you want to survive, put on a parachute and jump." After saying this, the pilot put on a parachute himself and jumped out. Now the problem was that there were 4 passengers, but only 3 parachutes. The doctor did not waste a second. He grabbed a parachute and shouted while jumping, "I am a doctor. The world needs me badly. I save lives." Then the lawyer stepped forward and said proudly, "I am the smartest man in the world. It is very important that I survive." Saying this, he picked up a bag and jumped. The elderly religious scholar looked kindly at the student and said, "My son, I have already lived my life. You are young, and your whole life is still ahead of you. Take the last parachute and save yourself." The boy smiled calmly and replied, "Uncle, there is nothing to worry about. 2 parachutes are still here, because the smartest man in the world just jumped wearing my school bag." Moral: your profession is not your true identity. Your character, wisdom, and behavior show who you really are. There was a teacher in a college. He had a class of 35 girls. One girl arrived late every single day. Most of the time she came after the first period. It made me very angry. She never argued. She listened quietly to whatever I said, and then went to her class. One day I decided that I would call her family and send her back home. She looked completely normal. I said to her, "Do your parents know that you come late every day?" She replied softly, "Yes, sir." "They know," I said. "What kind of people are they who cannot send you on time?" she said. "Sir, there are only my 2 brothers and my father at home. My mother has passed away. I prepare breakfast for everyone every morning. That is why I get late." Later, I became a school principal. During a parent-teacher meeting, many parents used to come and meet me as well because I had built good relations in that area. Most of them would greet me and then leave. One day, the father of a student came to my office holding a report card. The teacher had specially called him because his child's marks were extremely... He came and sat near me. At first, I thought he was going to complain. He spoke very politely. He was a decent man, holding a good position with a confident and graceful personality. He said, "Sir, I have one request." He said, "Please do not tell my son that he does not study or that his marks are low." Then he explained, "My son has a disease called hydrocephalus. Water builds up in his head, and after some time it has to be removed through treatment. The fact that he can walk, move, and sit in a classroom today is already a very big achievement for us. We want him to stay in a normal class with other children. Sometimes we look at children only from our own angle. Children do not lie every time. Children are not always making excuses. Not all parents want high marks. Every child has a different definition of success. Try spending time with students during a free period and talk to them. Every human being is carrying a different story. Listen carefully to parents during parent-teacher meetings. Do not make assumptions on your own. We look at children through our own glasses and then the whole world looks exactly the way we think it is. But that is not the truth. Every child wants to say something. Every mother and father has struggles they want to share. We are often too busy talking to listen. So take off your glasses and try to see with your heart. A notorious robber and ruthless murderer was finally caught after many years and brought under the grip of the law. He was tried in court, and after his horrifying crimes were proven, he was sentenced to death. As the day of execution approached, prison authorities followed tradition and asked him about his final wish. With a heavy heart, he said, "I want to meet my mother." Out of respect for his request, his mother was called. When the elderly mother arrived and saw her young son in such a condition, she broke down. She hugged him tightly and began to cry uncontrollably. At that very moment, something strange and horrifying happened. The son suddenly bit his mother's ear with great force, causing her to scream in pain. Everyone present was shocked by this brutal act, and it took great effort to pull the mother away from him. The officers shouted in anger and disbelief, "You wretched man!" Even at the last moments of your life, you are hurting your own mother. The robber sighed deeply and said in a trembling voice, "People, it is because of my mother that I have reached the gallows today. When I was a child and troubled people without reason, instead of stopping me, she encouraged me. Once I stole from a neighbor's house. When the neighbors came to complain, my mother did not correct me. Instead, she covered up my crime and drove them away while blaming them." He continued, "From that day on, my courage increased. I believed that no matter what I did, my mother would protect me. First I committed small thefts, then I became a robber, and finally I became a murderer. If my mother had scolded me that day and corrected my behavior, this noose would not be around my neck today." Moral lesson. Blindly supporting children and hiding their mistakes is not love. It is the road to their destruction. Parents must correct their children from an early age, so they grow into responsible and beneficial members of society, not a danger to it. Once two very close friends were traveling together through the desert. As they walked, they started talking, and slowly their conversation turned into an argument. The argument became so intense that one friend suddenly slapped the other across the face. The friend who was slapped felt deeply hurt, but he did not say a single word. Instead, he knelt down and wrote on the sand, "Today my best and closest friend slapped me." They continued walking, and soon came across. Suddenly, the friend who had been slapped got stuck in a muddy part of the lake and began to sink. The same friend who had slapped him rushed forward and saved his life. After being rescued, the friend picked up a stone and carved these words into it, "Today my best and closest friend saved my life." Seeing this, the friend who had first slapped him and later saved him asked curiously, "When I hurt you, you wrote it in the sand. But when I saved your life, you carved it into stone. Why?" The other friend smiled and replied, "When someone hurts us or causes us pain, we should write it in the sand so that the wind of forgiveness can erase it away. But when someone does something good for us, we should carve it into stone so that nothing can ever erase it." Long ago, there was a kind king who loved his people. He ordered a 100-kilometer road to be built for their comfort. After the road was completed, the king asked his 3 ministers to inspect it and report any faults. In the evening, the first minister returned and said, "The road is beautiful, Your Majesty. Only one small place has some trash. If it is removed, the road will look perfect." The second minister said the same thing. The third minister arrived late, tired and sweaty, carrying a bag. He said, "Your Majesty, the road is excellent, but I saw trash at one place. It was spoiling its beauty, so I cleaned it myself. I also found this bag there." The king smiled and said, "I placed the trash in the bag myself. The bag contains money. It is your reward." Then the king said loudly, "Everyone points out problems. Everyone wants things to improve, but very few take action. If we want a better society, we must start with ourselves. Moral, it is easy to complain, but true change comes from action. Be the person who fixes the problem, not the one who only talks about it."